Hey there, Win-Win Nation. Good afternoon. I am Michelle L. Forbes, your Win-Win Life coach and your host here, right here on the Win-Win Life show. So this afternoon, we have an entrepreneur in our midst, and I am super excited to share with you her story and her journey. But just before we bring her up, let me go ahead and share just a tad bit with you about who our guest is and what can you expect. Her name is Monica Beauchamp. And Monica Beauchamp is the mother of two beautiful boys. She says that she is a serial entrepreneur and multiple passions she embodies. She is the owner of Busy Bees Bakery LLC and a home-based business specializing, it is a home-based business specializing in decorated cookies and other delicious treats. Monica also is the owner of Busy Bees online business boutique. Interesting, isn't it? And this business is a virtual assistant business where she combines energetics and intuition and business support for spiritual entrepreneurs. 2 years ago, Monica created an energy healing program using baking as a healing modality to help others release anxiety and other emotions stuck within their body. Yes, you heard it right. She uses baking as a healing modality in her energetics healing program. Now, please help me welcome with us today our guest for this afternoon, Monica Beauchamp. Monica, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you here on the Win-Win Live show. And as I was reading your bio just now to the audience, and I touched on the energy healing program using baking as the modality. And I said, yes, you heard me right. So, but we're not going to start right there. We're going to go back a bit before
Sure.
we dive on into the modalities, baking as a modality for healing. Monica, now you are a businesswoman engaging in business, but what was life before Monica, the businesswoman, began?
So I spent, and actually when I started my business, I was still in this career, but I spent 20 years working in mental health. So I was in a high stress job with low pay. Um, we we don't enter that vocation because of the pay, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And so when my oldest son was born, I often joke that he was the $1 million baby even before he was born because I went into premature labor and was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and then he was born early, so he was a NICU baby. And with that comes, a lot of expense. And in addition to that, he was born with some medical problems and he required multiple surgeries. So I really I started my baking business because I needed a second income stream. And but even before that, I had this massive passion for baking and just the way it brings people together, like when you offer baked goods. And if you think about family celebrations and even work functions, like those
Yeah.
kinds of things just bring people together, and I always have loved that.
Wow. 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 As you shared that just now when you offer, I literally saw like the hand with the plate of cookies are going and everybody just flocking and that the bringing together of folks through the baked goods. And that's true. And I can think of my own home, born and have been in a home of 6 brothers and 6 sisters. When baked goods take place, everybody flock where the nose, we're pulled to where the scent is
Yes.
coming from. Wow. So I liked how you shared there. You said you joked around saying your son was the $1 million baby. What did you mean by that? Meaning he is going to break the door open for the millions to start flowing in?
No, at the time, no, but maybe. I mean, I think he's definitely meant for big things. No,
Okay.
it was more, he cost me $1 million before he was even born.
Oh,
But you know what? That's okay. Like,
yeah, yep.
his medical journey has been a big part of my journey too.
Wow. Wow, wow. And even as you shared that, Monica, when you said that just now, he would have cost $1 million. Immediately, what I saw was that's his value. And so, as he values that, he will be attracting and pulling that type of value to him just the same. Wow. So your word was prophetic and was going not only out but also coming in. And I look forward to hearing the testimonial about that from you sometime down the journey, down the road. But Monica, I'd love to know. So yes, now you are a businesswoman and you would have been in that high stress and anxiety job for
Mhm,
20 years.
mhm.
Why did you choose that? Because you did mention we're certainly not for the money, but why did you choose that type of environment to say, I'm gonna make this my 9 to 5?
Well, I started out working with kids with mental health, and I realized, like, fairly quickly that's not really what I wanted to do. Like, I liked them advocating and doing the mental health part, but kids wasn't really my passion. Of course, now I come back to that and I actually really love working with younger people. But
Okay.
um so I had this opportunity and started this agency working with adults, and then that at some point, instead of just mental health, that turned into working with people with substance use disorder.
Mhm,
And I was just very passionate about that. And I think a lot of this stems from, like, I had my own childhood trauma. And so, like, I just had this strong desire to help other people
mhm,
who had also been through trauma.
mhm.
Um, because, you know, especially with substance use disorder, like, what I know is every person I worked with had a story,
Wow.
and not everybody was interested in hearing it. But absolutely no one woke up one day and just said, "Hey, I'm going to mess up my life and use drugs." That is not that's just not how it happened. And they needed somebody to walk with them on their journey to recovery. And like, I was just so fortunate that I was able to be that person with them.
Yes, yes. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I love what you said there just now. They needed somebody to walk with them as they walk on their journey.
Mhm.
Mm, that is powerful. Do you miss it, Monica?
I I miss aspects of it. Like, I will always have a passion for the clients I worked with. There was a lot of there were a lot of things that I didn't necessarily agree with at the end with the agency I was working with. It felt like people had become more of a number than a person.
Mm,
And like, I wasn't there to see how many hours I could bill. I was there to make an impact. And when I felt like I was no longer able to make an impact, that's when I knew, like, it was time for me to go.
mhm.
Um, and I left without really having a firm plan of what I was going to do.
Oh,
I just trusted that whatever was meant to happen would happen, and I've just been incredibly blessed.
wow, wow, wow. She left without a plan, but she had trust. She had trust. I'm telling you this afternoon, you have no excuse. If you've been sitting on that thought, that idea, and haven't stepped out as yet, you have no excuse. This afternoon, we have with us Monica, the creator of Busy Bees online business boutique, as well as her LLC and the Energy Healing Program. You are a creator. What are you creating with what you have in your hands? So, Monica, you left, you do miss some aspects, definitely not some aspects, but you knew that it was your time to move on. You knew, okay,
Mhm.
my time here had come to an end. Had no plan, but you stepped. So my question to you is business, like business, some persons say business found me, some persons it was passed down to them, and different reasons why persons end up in business. Why and how did you end up in business?
So I was definitely looking for a way, and um, I think I think the I think the pandemic helped me along this way, but so at the beginning of the pandemic, I was furloughed from my job, and I had never experienced anything like that, and
Yeah.
also like our daycare had closed, and there were a lot of factors because I have two young kids, and like one was in daycare, the other one wasn't, and so while I was furloughed, I was like, wow, well, one, I had just formed my LLC, and I was in a bit of a panic because I was like, well, what's a pandemic going to do to a baking business? So I realized like I needed to shift things very quickly. So what I did was um, I started offering delivery. So I would just deliver baked goods and leave them on their doorstep, and I would, send a message when it was delivered, and then there was that uncertainty because it was like right around Easter. I had
Yes.
a lot of big orders, and I reached out to everyone in advance, and I said, we're not certain of what's going to happen. If you would like for me to refund your order, I will, or if you would like for me to credit, whatever, like I'm happy to work with you. And it was just such a time of uncertainty. I felt like people needed to know, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for you. And I think I had like 5 orders and they said, oh yeah, we won't be having our family gathering. And whether they asked for a credit or a refund, every single one of those people came back.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. 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 That, you know what, that spoke to me, Monica. That spoke to me that there was a touch.
Yeah.
The, there's a connection. And I know when you mentioned like in the job that you weren't in it for the numbers. You were more looking
Hmm.
at connecting and being there with the persons as they're walking through their journey, just ensuring that I got you. I'm here with
Hmm. Hmm.
you. And
Yeah.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
with the switch, so when I kind of switched things up, I was like, I actually was pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh wow, my business is actually more successful than it's ever been. And I can work from home and I can see my kids.
Yeah.
So then I was like, maybe I don't want to continue in a 9 to 5. Of course, it took me longer to exit, but
Yeah.
once we were able to come back full time, I reached out to my supervisor and said, I actually would prefer not to return full time. I would like to work part time,
Mhm.
and I would love to work something out. And they weren't certain that they wanted me to be able to work part time, and
Mm.
it reached a point where like a decision had to be made, and I had just said, I would love to stay, but if part-time isn't an option, I'm ready to move on. And they decided they would prefer to have me part-time as opposed to not at all. So so I stepped into a part-time role,
Yes.
and then I had my baking business, and then I was like busy all the time, but it was nice because I did feel like I had more time with my boys, who were,
Yes.
the most important of all of that. And so really, like, even though the pandemic did a lot of negative things, like, it
Yes.
really helped kind of pave the path for me, because I knew at some point that I was going to leave, and I wanted to be able to spend more quality time with them.
Mm. As you're talking, Monica, what stands out so profoundly to me is look what trust brought you and led you
Mhm.
into. leaving that 20 years job, 20 years mine, not knowing what you're going to do, but you just trust that everything is going to work itself out. And
Mm-hmm.
look at how trust guided you along the path. Wow. So the line of business you chose was bakery.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, one of the reasons you mentioned was it brought people together. What caused you to stay within that business?
So, within that time frame, and this is kind of how my energy healing program evolved too, but within that time frame, my oldest son had a very intense surgery. He was born with bilateral club feet,
Mhm.
and he'd had multiple surgeries to correct his feet. None of it had actually worked.
Mhm.
Um, and we were fortunate that really the leading doctor in correcting it was located in St. Louis. He wasn't the doctor that we started with, because he needed treatment like when he was still in the NICU. So we
Yeah.
switched doctors, and surgery was the only option.
Mm.
He had a very intense surgery. He was in full leg casts for months.
Yes.
Um, and he had, so the surgery went really well. The
Yeah.
doctor was like full correction,
Yeah.
like, and I'd never had so much hope.
Wow.
Um, and then 2 weeks into his recovery, so he recovered at home just with me for 2 weeks, and then he went back to school. He was in a wheelchair, but they had like prepared, and I was confident, and
Yes.
the school was amazing. But so his first day back, he started bleeding, and um, he was transported by ambulance to the ER, and it started this like basically 14-day nightmare. Um, and in the so through that, he our last trip to the ER, which there were several, but he had gone to school that morning, and I look back and I remember all the details, but he was only in kindergarten and he didn't like school. Um, and he sat up and he said, "Oh, I don't want to go to school this morning. I'm too tired." Well, I mean, I only heard that every day, right? So I was like, "Okay, we got to get up. We got to get moving." And he like fell back on the bed, and I was like, "Well, that's kind of unusual." But I didn't. It still wasn't enough to make me think like he
Yeah.
wasn't well.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And once he got to school, they didn't contact me right away, unfortunately, but once he got there, he couldn't stay awake. And had I known that piece, like I would have known there was something very wrong. But
Yes.
then he started bleeding profusely,
Mm.
and he became unresponsive.
Whoa.
So that was a huge part of our journey, because I, of course, dropped everything and rushed to the hospital to be with him.
Yeah.
And I was watching him dying, and he had a blood transfusion. Actually, when I tell people like how low his hemoglobin was, um, anybody in the nursing industry is like, "Oh my gosh, it was critically low." So was his blood pressure.
Mm.
Um, and he had a blood transfusion, and he made a full recovery. He had emergency surgery that evening. And I often say he made a full recovery that day, but I did not.
Mm. Mm.
And baking is what saved me, because the nights where I couldn't sleep because I was in the midst of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
I would get up and bake. And
Mm.
as I healed, the beautiful thing is, as I healed, um,
Mm-hmm.
I realized, oh my gosh, I can help other people do by
Wow.
doing this exact same thing with them.
Mm.
And as I've gained clarity and become like continued healing over the past 2 years, it's just become like more and more powerful. And
Mhm,
I've really honed in on like how to help people most, because at first it was just baking.
mhm,
And
mm,
now what it's become is a lot of work with, I usually choose pizza dough actually, because you can't like really overwork it.
yes.
But and who doesn't love pizza, right?
Yeah.
So like I teach how to make pizza dough, and then we knead it. And through the kneading, there's something very powerful about energy leaving your hands. And when you have your heart and mind engaged in this activity, it's easier to work through all those emotions.
Yes.
Um, and so that's what I've been doing. And as I've become a stronger channel and energy healer, like I can actually help people release that energy through my own hands, even though I'm not doing the work.
Mm, wa- wow. Oof. Wow. 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 Mm. Thank you so much for being transparent and sharing that. Mm. Wow. You've often said he fully recovered that day, but not you. It was baking that
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
And one of the things that spoke profoundly to me about your heart is you were still going through the healing process, but you thought right away of others.
Hmm.
That's huge. That's huge. You weren't fully 100% healed yet, but right away your thought is, I could help others who's going through the same or similar to receive healing. Just a release, just letting it all out, just through needing. Wow. Wow. Huge.
Well, and it was really interesting because I did a group session recently,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Well, how will we know when like the dough comes together?" And I said, "I cannot explain this, but magically the dough comes together
Yeah.
when you have finished releasing, and it works that way every time."
Wow.
And I can't explain it, but that's how it has worked every time, whether it takes 10 minutes or
Yes.
30 minutes.
Yes. 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 And they will know.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. That is powerful. That's deep. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. So this, as you were going through that time, you would get up in the hours of the night and you would just go to baking. What role did that play? So what you would have walked through with your son, and now that you have now started business, it's no longer going out to a 9 to 5. What was the dynamics like for this new life where mommy's now a business owner and she's home and she's engaging in this business? What were the things that kind of shifted and changed for you on the home base?
Um, I I think what I realized, like, for one, like, I think what I realized very early on was that I had to put a lot of structure in place, because even though I was home, it wasn't always time spent
Yeah.
my kids, and they need that time. And they really, not that kids in general don't, but they really thrive on structure, because both my boys are on the autism spectrum, so
Yeah.
they they
Structure.
need they need that structure. So that was a really important piece of the learning process.
Yeah.
Because
And
sometimes it
was
seems like
both
it's going to be easier and you're going to spend all this time with your kids, but like when you're working, that's not necessarily the case. So I've found like I can spend very like pointed time with them,
yes.
and doing like fun activities where
Yeah.
we're all engaged together, and then they're like satiated and happy, and then I can get whatever I need to done.
Yes, yes, yes. It's so correct when you mentioned that you think that, oh, I'm home, so they're gonna be able to spend more time with my kids. But it's like when you get in that work mode and your working is like hours and hours and hours, and like, ooh, it's night already. Hmm. Wow, I can definitely identify with that. So if the structure wasn't there, then it would not been a pretty
Mm-mm,
picture at all. So the structure
mm-mm.
really brought things into play. That is so
Yeah.
good. That is so good. And the last part there, after you would have spent that time with them when they are, fully satiated, now you're free to go do business. So as you went through COVID and you realize, oh, my business is actually doing better, as you know
Mm-mm.
switched into not switched, you added on another element to your business, which is not only baking the goods but also delivering the goods. What caused you pivoted and went online in a different line of business? What caused you to make that pivot?
So I was working with an energy healer to help me through my own trauma. So like in and actually, so my program that I created, I've worked with some of her family. She noticed like I wasn't in a great space, and she had said, my daughter really loves to bake. Would you be willing to teach her? And I said, and we're not in the same country. And I said, I'm sure you can find somebody closer. I'm not really a teacher. And she was like, just one session. And I finally was like, okay, fine, one session. And we had many, many beautiful sessions. And I I could see the impact that it had in like
Not being in the same country.
no, it was all virtual.
Virtual.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I could see the impact it had. And um her daughter and I still talk. Um In fact, I laugh because there was not that long ago that she was like, "Oh," she messaged me. She said, "I can't get a hold of my mom. Can you send her a message for me?" And I was like, "You realize like I'm 1,800 miles away." But I did. It was totally fine. But I love that she trusted me to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Wow.
so we like developed this just really beautiful relationship, and I'm like, first of all, she's a very talented baker. She's young, but she's a very talented baker. And I'm just like, I look at her because it was 2 years ago when I started working with her, and I just am like so proud of like the person that she's becoming. So it's
Yeah.
been really awesome. But so I was working
Mm.
with her, and she had another program, and I had joined it. And like I believed so much in what her and her business partner were doing, that I was promoting them in different groups and stuff. And like I never had any expectation of anything. Like I just wanted people to know about them, right?
Mm.
And it reached a point they were like, we kind of want to hire you for like some networking and marketing, and you could actually get paid for what you're already doing. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh, yeah, that would be amazing. So from there,
And hold on. So you kind of stumbled upon this.
yeah. so,
Interesting.
so from there, they
Mm.
had a VA who left abruptly,
Mm-hmm.
and due to some unfortunate circumstances. And they said, hey, we really need a VA. Are you ready? And I'm like, I don't know, because I had never done VA work. And
Whoa.
yeah, I stayed with them for 18 months, and it was great. Like I just took it upon myself to learn absolutely everything I could. Like I just taught myself. And
Wow.
um but the biggest part of that was really um connecting with people. Like I love to do lead generation, and not in a way where I'm like contacting multiple people, 400 people a day. I don't do it like that. But it's all about like that sincere connection and conversation. I think that's the piece that I take into
Yes.
everything that I do, like every business, absolutely everything that I do.
Mhm, mhm. Wow. 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 There are some key takeaways from what you just shared, Monica. One, you stumbled upon it just by you extending yourself. You really like what they're doing, and you just took it upon yourself to promote them. For those who do not know, when she mentioned group, maybe you've never heard about Facebook groups before, but she was speaking specifically to Facebook groups.
Mhm.
And so you were a part of their group. You really liked and believe in what they're doing. And so you started promoting just on your own accord. And then you stumbled upon, can you do that for us? Can you do some marketing for us? Hmm. And then their VA had to go. They offered you the position as a VA. You didn't know anything about VA, virtual assistant. For those who are not aware of what VA is, virtual assistant. And you took it upon yourself to learn everything
Mhm.
as it pertains to being in a virtual assistant role. Guys, did you hear that? Again, I'm touching on that thing that you've been sitting on, ifing and butting and wondering if you should, wondering if you shouldn't. She took it upon herself to learn everything concerning this thing that she was offered. Didn't go to school, didn't get any formal training, but she self-taught herself, went and find the goods, learned the goods, and showed up for work, ready. So when did the next question I'd love to ask is, when did it transition into a business for you, which is the Busy Bees online business boutique as virtual assistant? When did it transition into a business for you?
So, in March of this year, I had my own medical crisis. I talked about my sons, but I had my own medical crisis, and I ended up in a 7-hour procedure, abdominal procedure. And like, not that I would want that for anybody, but it literally changed my life. Like, I
Mm,
had this
mm,
I had this vision while I was in the hospital, and I kind of joked that I don't think it was just the medication that I was on, but like that I had like, I mean, they opened me up, and I
mm.
felt, literally I felt opened up, but opened up to new possibilities, opened up to abundance, opened up to, all these incredible opportunities. And
Oh,
it was just like during my recovery, one, I couldn't bake because I couldn't lift over 10 pounds, and to be honest, I couldn't even lift that. Like, I remember picking up my cookie tray, which is very light, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so heavy. So I couldn't lift anything. And the doctor had told me, like, don't, you can't. And they said, like, they actually told me it would be June before I could ease back into baking, but I've never eased back into anything very well. So in June, I took my first corporate order, and the largest order I had ever had, which was like 15 dozen cookies. Um, so, but, but
hey.
so in mid-March that happened, and then um, the coaches that I originally worked with and we parted ways. Like, we're still very close. We're very good friends, but
Yes,
it was kind of time for us to part ways. And I
yes.
realized, wait, I have all these skills. There's no reason that I can't start my own business, right?
Wow.
So that happened at the end of March. And I work with spiritual entrepreneurs only, coaches, spiritual entrepreneurs. And I think because I knew like who I wanted to work with,
Okay.
I just was able to energetically call out to people that I could just vision who I wanted to work with and energetically call out to them, and they found me. Like, it's
Mm.
been the most incredible thing. So when I say I've opened myself up to abundance, like in
Oh,
receiving, like I don't know how else to describe it, because
yes.
from the end of March until now, I have 11 clients and I have a wait list, and I have already scaled my business. Um, and it's just been the most incredibly beautiful experience that I think I've had.
Wow. 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 I took note you mentioned when you were literally opened up and you knew you were opened up, correct? On the
Well,
on the table. Or
no, not at the time.
okay,
Like,
not at the time.
this
Okay, okay.
procedure, this procedure, I think usually takes an hour to an hour and a half, but I was a mess.
Yeah, you said
I
seven
was a
hours.
mess. It was 7 hours. I remember because I went in for certain that, like, I went into the emergency room. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had had this medical issue for a while, and I was just trying to like
Mm.
baby it along until I had to take care of it. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I knew like I had to go
Yes. Yes.
seek medical help like immediately. So like I woke my kids up in the middle of the night because I didn't want them to like wonder where I was when they woke up.
Yes.
So I woke them and I said, "Hey, I'm okay." Like, I just kept reassuring them I'm okay, even though I didn't know if I was okay. I need to go get some medical help and I will be back. I thought I'd be back that night. I was like, I will be back as soon as I can be. And I drove myself half an hour to the emergency room. And then once I got there, I kind of just fell apart. I think I was just like in that state of surrender. Now I'm here, like
Yes.
somebody else can take care of me.
Give me. Okay. Yes. Yes.
And they
Yes.
scheduled me for surgery at 5 o'clock that evening. And I was coming out of anesthesia, and the nurse said, "Hey, just to let you know, you were in surgery for 7 hours. It's midnight." And I was like, "What?" And I ended up, um, for anybody who knows about hospitalizations and healthcare in the US, I ended up in the hospital for 6 days, and nobody is in the hospital for 6 days. So that should tell you it was pretty intense.
Wow. So did you make you didn't make arrangements? Did you make arrangements for yourself? Because you expect that you'll be back.
Oh yeah, my so my husband and I are separated. We've been separated for 2 years. So like the year I left my job, that was like a year of big change. We separated in June. I
Okay.
had quit my job in October.
Okay.
And I contacted him at, it was probably 4:30 in the morning, and I said, "I need you to come and be with the boys. I need to go to the hospital." And I'm sure it's because I woke him up out of a dead sleep, but he said, "Now?" And I'm like, "Right now." So as
Wow.
soon as he got here, I left. And actually one of my friends um was communicating with me while I was in the ER, and
Mm.
she said, we didn't know what was going to happen. And we didn't know if I was going to be okay. So she said, "Hey, can I get his number just in case?" And she has a relationship with my boys. And so she wanted to be able to keep in contact with them too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
she messaged him and said, like, "I don't know fully what's going on, but she's gonna need help when she gets out of the hospital." And he's not like overly helpful. But she said, you're going to have to go and make meals. You're going to have to do the grocery shopping because she's not going to be able to lift anything. And he was like, okay. And I was like, what kind of magic did you just do here? Because that would not have been the response I got. But you know, what happened was like, he really had to step up, and he had to take care of the boys full time.
Yes, yes.
And I think that was the first time he was able to see like how much I do. And so it's actually, even though we're not getting back together, but it's actually made us more amicable and able to like work together better, because he had to step into that role that I had taken on
Mhm.
for
Wow.
so long.
Wow. So he literally like stepped in your shoes, except for the business part of it, but
Hmm. Hmm.
running the home, taking care of the boys, he stepped in your shoes. So he felt
I
firsthand.
mean, he had to, yeah.
Mm, wow. 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 Two things pop out at me as you shared that experience that you walked through, Monica. One, that you listened to your body. You've been putting it off and trying to maybe doctor it or nurse it yourself, but you knew the situation was there. And when you got up that morning, you listened, you knew it's now or never. I need to get to the ER.
Hmm.
And you took action. How many of us are not with us today because we refused? We didn't listen. Hint, hint, our bodies giving us hint, 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 hint. I need your attention. I need some attention. And two, when you mentioned that you can't explain it, but when you were opened up, you felt as though it was an opening up to new opportunities, to abundance, to some new avenues and connections that you never had before. And you literally walked that out and is walking it out. I note you said that you have 11 clients since March and a waiting list.
Hmm.
There goes the new connections, the new opportunities that was awaiting you. If you were to go ahead and walk through, and I took note too that you mentioned that you kind of got shoved into the business arena due to COVID. Would you, is there anything that you would change when you kind of turn and look back on your journey? Is there anything that you would say, I would tweak this or I would want this? Is there anything that you would want to tweak as it pertains to your journey and the woman of business who you are today?
I don't think so, because I think I have to have had to have like every experience to get where I'm at. Like, um, even though it would be really easy for me to say, I wish I had put myself out there more with my energy healing program, because that is my biggest passion.
Mm,
But I couldn't, because I wasn't healed enough. Now I'm at that point where I
uh,
can, and I have it's been really interesting. Like, I had the opportunity to do a group session. I have plans to go to the school board, probably in the fall, maybe in the winter, and talk to them about this as a program to help with emotional release, because kids just don't have that safe space to release their emotions. And I see what it's doing to them. And I want to be able to provide that safety and that. So and then
excuse me.
one of the biggest things, I reached out. I used to work in a treatment court setting, which was people who had gotten in trouble with the law for substance use disorder things. And I had a real passion for working with people who had had their kids taken away because of their substance use, and they were working to regain custody of their children. And that's probably the population I miss most. And I reached out to the treatment court administrator, because we we worked together, and I remember when she didn't work for the same agency I did. She worked directly with the courts, but we had a very good working relationship. And I remember when I was leaving, I called her and I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know it's my last day here. she, and she was stunned, because she was like, wait, did you just walk out and not give notice? she, she was like, I wish I was that bold, but I'm like, no, this has been a couple weeks in the works, but I want to let you know it was my last day. And she was like, that's amazing, and I hope you stay in touch. And I was like, oh, I definitely will. Well, fast forward 2 years, I didn't stay in touch. And just out of the blue one day, I was thinking about her, and I was like, I sent her a message and I said, hey, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to catch up. And that was this year. And she said she got that message and she was like, oh my gosh, because, we hadn't
Yes.
talked in so long.
Yes.
And she was like, I knew I had to call like immediately. So we just like caught up. And then at the end of our conversation, I said, hey, I created this program and I would really love to talk to you about it, because I would love to implement it with the treatment court clients. And she was like, and I told her I usually do it virtually.
Mhm.
And she said, it's not no, but she said the judges don't like virtual programs, and there were a lot of reasons for that. And she said, I'll tell you what, she said, I'm in the process of helping to open a community center really close to the court, and it will have a kitchen.
Mm. Oh,
And she said, let's set up a time to meet. So at first I was like, oh yeah, let's meet in July. And then I was like, wait a minute, let's meet in August when my kids are back in school. So I don't have to bring them to our meeting. And she
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
yeah, that's a good idea.
yes, yes, yes,
She has kids too, so she understands. Her kids are grown though. So
yes, yes.
so we're planning on meeting in August, and I do think it's something that they will let me implement. And I actually have done something similar with them in the past, and the court participants loved it. Like they loved it. So I'm hoping to be able to really implement that.
Wow, wow. As we bring the show winding down and bringing it to an end, I have 3 pop questions for you. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Oh, 10 years. So it's interesting. Until recently, I've never been able to visualize like the future. But what I would really love, and what I'm intentionalizing, is that I will have not just a small agency, but I will have a full VA agency. I
Mhm.
will have stepped out of some of the day-to-day stuff, because I'll have,
Mhm.
like, I will always be the face of whatever company I have, but the day-to-day stuff, like, I'll have stepped back,
Yes.
because I'll have a beautiful team of people
Mm.
under me who I know I can trust,
Yeah.
which is going to be amazing. And then,
Yeah.
one of my big passions has always been that I would have a storefront bakery business, not just out of my home, but an actual like brick and mortar.
Yes.
And I have always had this strong pull to hire people that maybe would be overlooked by others. Like I would not be opposed to hiring somebody who had been incarcerated or had substance use disorder history, because you know what? Everybody deserves that second chance. And if I can give that, I
Yeah.
will.
Mm.
But also along with that, like I've had the recent vision of having a space within that where I could also do my Need to Heal program.
Mm.
So kind of a combination of
Mm.
a bakery business and like I don't even know what you call it, not a kitchen necessarily, but just a space.
True.
where I can come together with people in person.
Yes, yes. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Love that. If you are given the opportunity, or when you're given the opportunity to write your first book, what would be the title of that book?
Well, it's funny because I'm actually part of a multi-author book right now,
Interesting.
but I have also always known that, not always, but in the past, I'm going to say in the past year and a half, like I've known that I am supposed to write a book. And I did intuitively know what the title was, but I have no idea what it's going to be about. But it would be called Spilled Milk and Broken Cookies. Um, and I really think
Grab my attention, like spilled milk and broken. Like, what's this about?
I think it's really, at first I thought it was supposed to be a children's book,
Yep.
but I really think it's a book about my own healing.
Journey. Yep, 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 yep. And sharing your journey along the way. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Love that. Love that. Love that. Wow. Yeah. That definitely is a book that would grab my attention. And the last question that I'd love to ask you, Monica, if you look back at the younger version you, the 20-year-old you, the 25-year-old Monica, what are three advice that you would give to her today, from based on where you're at today, knowing what you know today? What are three advice that you could give to her that you know would serve her so well if she just say, okay, yes, I think I'm gonna try that and try that and try that?
I think for sure to have more confidence and self belief. And
Mm,
that, of course, also leads to self love and acceptance, because that has been quite a journey for me. I was telling a friend recently, I said, self love is a journey, not a destination. It's something that we will always and forever be working on.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I think that's a big part of it, and just to mm, I don't know. I think those are the key components of what has gotten me here. But
Okay.
there's also something about just never losing hope, because
Mm,
um,
mm, mm.
through all the trials, like that's the one thing that I had always said was like, as long as you have even that small sliver of hope,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can achieve like whatever you set out to achieve.
Yeah, yeah. Powerful, powerful. Thank you, Monica. Those three things, I don't know if you guys caught it, but let me just repertoire it for you. One, self-belief, self-love, and never lose hope. As you share that, Monica, it flashed again in my mind what my mom usually say all the time to me as a child. Michelle, once there is life, there is hope. Michelle, once there is life, there is hope. And it is so beautiful that you mentioned through all the trials that you would have been through. That's one thing that you held on to. And you mentioned even if just a sliver of hope, that's it's enough to get you on out of that place, that trial, and on into where you are meant to be, supposed to be, destined to be. Monica, it was such a pleasure having you here this afternoon on the Win Win Life show. Oof, it became pretty emotional at one point. And usually I kind of sense when I'm gonna have a show that is gonna be emotional, and I would have my napkin pretty close. I was here today. Didn't expect that, but wow. Thank you so much for being transparent, for sharing your heart, for sharing your journey, your story with us. And I'm pretty certain that if it's even one person out there today and who will listen to the replay to come for years, will be blessed, will be uplifted through your story. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here on the Win Win Live show. And we definitely will stay connected.
Thank you so much.
Guys, until we meet and see each other again next week, same time, same place, right here on the Win Win Live show, 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Au revoir.